You were born into a world that never stood still. If you fall somewhere between 1995 and 2010, you did not just grow up, you adapted. You are often labeled as Gen Z, a term that sounds simple on the surface, but underneath it lies a complex psychological landscape shaped by constant change, digital immersion, and emotional awareness that previous generations did not fully experience at your age. And maybe at times you have felt it, that quiet sense that your mind works differently, that you process the world in a way that is faster, deeper, but also more overwhelming. Because your mindset was not just formed by family or school. It was shaped by an environment where information never stopped, where comparison was constant, and where identity became something you had to actively build rather than passively inherit. You grew up with the internet not as a tool, but as an extension of your mind. From an early age, your brain learned to process multiple streams of information at once: notifications, videos, conversations, trends. This constant stimulation trained your attention to be quick, reactive, and adaptable. But it also came with a hidden cost. Psychologically, your mind became wired for immediacy. You expect answers quickly. You feel discomfort in silence. Waiting feels heavier than it used to for previous generations, not because you lack patience, but because your brain has been conditioned to expect constant input. When that input disappears, it can create a subtle sense of emptiness or restlessness. This is why stillness can feel uncomfortable. And yet, beneath that fast-moving surface, there is something deeper happening within you. You are one of the most emotionally aware generations. You talk about mental health openly. You recognize terms like anxiety, burnout, trauma, and boundaries, not as abstract ideas, but as lived experiences. This awareness did not come from nowhere. It developed because you were exposed to conversations that were once hidden. You saw vulnerability online. You witnessed people share their struggles publicly. You learned early on that emotions are not something to ignore, they are something to understand. But this awareness has a paradox, because while you understand your emotions better, you also feel them more intensely. You do not just experience stress, you analyze it. You do not just feel sadness, you question its origin. Your inner world is constantly active, constantly trying to make sense of itself. And sometimes, this creates a loop where awareness turns into overthinking. You become both the observer and the subject of your own mind, and that can be exhausting. Then there is the quiet pressure that follows you: comparison. Unlike previous generations, you did not just compare yourself to people in your immediate environment. You compared yourself to the entire world. Social media created a space where success, beauty, lifestyle, and happiness are constantly displayed, curated, and filtered. Psychologically, this creates a distorted baseline. You begin to measure your life against highlights instead of reality. You question your progress because someone else appears ahead. You doubt your worth because someone else looks more confident, more successful, more fulfilled. Even when you know, logically, that what you are seeing is not the full picture, the emotional impact still lingers. And over time, this shapes your self-perception. It makes you more self-aware, but also more self-critical. You start to feel like you are always in the process of becoming, but never quite there. At the same time, you carry a deep desire for authenticity. You do not want to live a life that feels fake or forced. You question traditions, challenge expectations, and search for meaning in what you do. This is why many of you struggle with conventional paths, not because you lack discipline, but because you crave purpose. You want your work, your relationships, your identity to feel real. This desire comes from a psychological shift. You have seen how easily things can change economies, careers, social norms. Stability no longer feels guaranteed. So instead of chasing what is safe, you are drawn to what feels meaningful. But meaning is harder to define than stability. And so you find yourself navigating uncertainty more often than clarity. Another defining part of your mindset is your relationship with identity. You were not given a fixed script for who you should be. Instead, you were given options, endless ones. You could be anything, explore anything, express yourself in countless ways. At first, this feels freeing. But psychologically, too many options can create pressure. Because when everything is possible, every choice feels heavier. You start to question whether you are making the right decision. You wonder if there is a better version of yourself you have not discovered yet. This is why many of you experience identity fluidity. You evolve quickly. Your interests shift. Your beliefs change as you learn more about the world and yourself. And while this adaptability is a strength, it can also create a sense of instability, like you are constantly redefining who you are. And then there is your relationship with connection. You are more connected than any generation before you, yet many of you feel deeply alone. This is not a contradiction, it is a psychological reality. Digital connection provides access, but not always depth. You can talk to hundreds of people, yet still feel unseen. You can share your thoughts publicly, yet still feel misunderstood. This creates a subtle emotional gap. You crave real connection conversations where you feel understood without needing to explain everything. relationships where you can be fully yourself without performance. And when you do not find that easily, loneliness becomes something quiet but persistent, not always obvious, but always there in the background. Despite all of this, there is a resilience within you that often goes unnoticed. You have learned to navigate uncertainty at a young age. You have adapted to rapid change, absorbed complex emotional concepts, and developed a level of self-awareness that many people only reach much later in life. Your struggles are not a sign of weakness. They are a reflection of the environment you grew up in. You are not too sensitive. You are responsive to a world that moves fast and demands constant adjustment. You are not lost. You are exploring identity in a space where the rules are no longer clearly defined. And perhaps the most important thing to understand is this. Nothing about your mindset is accidental. Every pattern, the overthinking, the emotional awareness, the desire for authenticity, the struggle with comparison has a cause. It was shaped by experiences, environments, and exposures that are unique to your generation. But here's where it becomes empowering. If something is learned, it can also be reshaped. You can train your mind to find stillness again, even in a world of constant noise. You can learn to observe your thoughts without getting trapped in them. You can redefine your relationship with comparison, turning it into inspiration instead of self-doubt. You can build deeper connections by choosing presence over performance. And most importantly, you can learn to treat yourself with the same understanding you offer others. Because at the core of everything you experience is a simple truth. You are still becoming, not in a rushed, pressured way, but in a gradual, evolving process that does not need to be perfect to be meaningful. Your awareness is not a burden, it is a tool. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a form of depth. Your uncertainty is not failure, it is the space where growth begins. So instead of asking, why am I like this? A question that often carries judgment, try asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift alone can change everything. Because when you stop fighting your own mind and start understanding it, you create space for something powerful, self-compassion. And from there, growth does not feel like pressure anymore. It feels like possibility.